This is part 2 of 7.2, Simplifying Algebraic Expressions. In this video, we will be learning how to simplify more complicated algebraic expressions. In order to simplify algebraic expressions, in the last video, or the last lesson, we learned how to combine like terms. In this video, we will add an additional step into the problems, that is using the distributive property. If there is a part of the expression that needs something distributed, you will do that first as step 1, and then after that distributive property is complete, you will combine like terms as you learned previously. Let's look at a first example. Negative 11 plus 9 times the quantity of x plus 3. You're going to start here by distributing the 9 to the x and to the 3. Do not add negative 11 plus 9 first. This is multiplication, and as we know, multiplication comes before addition and subtraction. Once you distribute the 9, you end up with negative 11 plus 9x plus 27. When you distribute, the parentheses now are gone, and we have an expression that we can simplify by combining like terms, which here we have negative 11 and plus 27, which simplifies to a positive 16 plus 9x. And in our next example, we have two things that need distributed. First, the 3 to the 2x and the 4, and next the 9 to the 1 and the x. So 3 times 2x is 6x, minus 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 9 times 1, minus 9 times x. To combine our like terms, we have 6x, and then we're going to subtract 9x from 6x. 6 minus 9 is negative 3x. And then we also have a minus or a negative 12 plus 9. A negative 12 plus 9 is a negative 3. You can write your answer as negative 3x minus 3 or negative 3x plus a negative 3. A couple quick notes when you do the distributive property. In this first step, notice we just bring down the subtraction sign from the distributive, what's inside the parentheses. It's not until you combine like terms that you're actually going to use that to subtract or add. So when we multiply, we just bring them down. When we add and subtract, you use them to determine the value of your addition or subtraction problem. This is where we've said before, when in doubt of what to put in between them, it would be a plus sign. Okay, not here. When you distribute, you bring down what the original sign was from the problem. Okay, one more example. This one has a couple different things to look at in it that we need to be careful of. This first one is that this is just multiplication. There's only one multiplication problem here, which is 3 times 2x, which again is 6x. And then the second part, we're distributing to the two terms inside the parentheses, but what we have to be careful of is what we are distributing. Here, you have to use this subtraction sign in front of the 4 as if it is being distributed with the 4. So for example, a minus 4 times 5 is a total of a minus 20. Then you can bring down the plus sign from the parentheses, but then you also have to take that minus sign with the 4 again when you multiply it by the 2x to give us a minus or a negative 8x. That is the part that most people will miss because we see the 4 and the minus sign as being minus 20, but we struggle to see why this would be a minus 8. So one way to think of it is that you're distributing the minus sign with the 4, or that you're subtracting the two products that come behind it. So this is 20, this is 8x, you're subtracting both of them. So that's a minus 20 and a minus 8x. Then you can combine your like terms, which here is negative 2x, And then you can bring down the minus 20 like that, or you can bring it down as a negative 20 and put a plus sign in between. Those are both correct answers. Take a few minutes to try these 3 practice problems. Moving on to some word problem scenarios. We need to read these very carefully and make sure we're interpreting exactly what the question is asking for. So for this first example, you have D dollars in your savings account. Your sister has $25 more than you in her account. Write an expression in simplest form that represents the total amount of money in both accounts. First thing you want to write down is that you have D dollars. Then you want to figure out what expression would represent how much money your sister has. If she has $25 more than your D dollars, that would be D plus 25. The directions ask for an expression in simplest form that represents the total amount of money in both accounts. We find total by adding yours plus your sister's values. Remember, you were D and your sister is D plus 25. She is your amount plus 25. This is what your expression would look like before putting it in simplest form. D plus 25. This is you. This whole expression is your sister's. Then to simplify, we combine like terms, recalling that this is a 1D plus 1D, which simplifies to 2D plus 25. Mr. Raphael needs to buy notebooks for his children to start the school year. His son Manny needs N notebooks. His daughter Ophelia needs 3 times as many as Manny. His son Leo needs 2 less notebooks than Ophelia. How many notebooks will he need to buy in all? This one, notice, does not ask for it in simplest form, which means that we do not have to combine like terms after we write our expression. We can simply write it and then leave it as is. So step 1 would say that Manny equals N notebooks. Ophelia is 3 times as many as Manny, which is 3N. We do not want to write this as N times 3. While it is mathematically correct, it will be difficult to write in an expression and correctly simplify. So we write it as 3n. This means 3 times n, and we want to write the number in front of the variable with no symbols in between. Then Leo is 2 less than Ophelia, so that's Ophelia's minus 2. Finally, to write the expression of how many they need to buy in all, we are going to add those 3 expressions together. Manny plus Ophelia plus Leo, which would look like this. N plus 3n plus 3n minus 2. Although it does not ask for simplest form, just to show you, this would be 7n minus 2 if we did put it in simplest form. Take a few minutes to try these on your own. Our final example is as shown. Mrs. Lang needs to put a new fence around her backyard for her dog. She knows that the width of her backyard is 4 feet more than 3 times the length. The length is L feet. Write an expression in simplest form to represent the amount of fencing she will need for the yard. This question is asking for the perimeter of Mrs. Lang's yard. So that is 4 sides of a rectangle. We know that the length is L and the width is 4 more than 3 times that. An expression to represent that would be 3L plus 4. Once you come up with this, you want to remember that perimeter as 4 sides needs to add up the 4 sides. So you're going to write this a couple different ways. You can start by simply adding L plus 3L plus 4 plus 3L plus 4. Another way you could write this is to multiply the length L and L times 2 and the widths times 2 and then add them together. Or you could add one length plus one width and then multiply that sum by 2. So these are all perfectly fine ways to start your original expression before putting them into simplest form. All three of these would eventually simplify to 8L plus 8. Part B asks, if the length of her yard is 50 feet, what is the perimeter? Now, assuming you got this part correct, the easiest way and shortest way to do this is not to go back to the original picture and replace L with 50 in all four sides, but to replace L with 50 in our simplified expression, because that means there are fewest steps to get the answer, which is the purpose of putting something in simplest form. So here we're going to multiply 8 times 50, which is 400, plus 8, which is 408 feet of fencing total for her yard. Here are some additional practice problems for you.